Welcome to the first episode of Two Mics All Sports with Zach Chavy and Joe Broll. And today we're beginning to give our 2025-2026 predictions. So, looking at the divisions, obviously we have like the Souths, in my opinion, are the weakest, and then you got the Norths for both that could be tough. What division in your mind, Joe, is going to be the toughest division to predict?
Toughest division, I would say probably the NFC South, just because of the different teams and structures that could be going down. But the easiest could be the NFC East, since there's only two powerhouse teams, or maybe the AFC West.
Mm-hmm. It really depends on like how each team comes in, and obviously we've had an interesting off season. What teams have made moves and stuff like that, and like what teams have tried to do to put themselves over the top in their division. Division I want to look into the most, in my opinion, at least, is the NFC North because each of those teams drastically improved, and they all could easily make the playoffs, or like the worst team could finish with maybe 6-7 wins. So
Yes.
but we're gonna jump right into it. NFC East. Joe, who do you have fourth place in the NFC East?
Fourth place, no surprise. I think it's the Dallas Cowboys, just because the late trade with Green Bay Packers losing Micah Parsons. Sure, you get CD back and Dak's back, but they say it every year. The boys are back. No, they're not. You have Russell Wilson now with the Giants, and you got their backups in Jackson Dart. They have a good young team building around them, and I just don't see Washington falling off that bad to place last in the division, especially after the great year Jaden Daniels had last year. And I obviously Saquon, Jalen Hurts, and the reigning Super Bowl champ Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think they're going to be coming last in this division.
Yeah. And I think this pretty much was set in stone, especially after the shocking Micah Parsons trade that happened last week. I mean, if you just look at their roster, their offense is going to be very reliant on them scoring points a lot. Like, it's going to remind me a lot of Cincinnati's games last year. But I still think Cincinnati's defense is better than what Dallas is throwing out on the field week one. And at this point, I think it's pretty certain that they might be starting 0-1 because they're playing a much better team than them. And Dak Prescott's had good seasons, but he's going to have an MVP caliber season for them to finish, what, second at best in this division? Because I like the like I said, like you said, I like the Giants over them because their defense is much improved and could be one of the best, if not the best, in the league. They have the best pass rush, in my opinion, in the league. The four guys they have between Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, like between those three, it's absolutely insane. And it's like they're only improving. They added pieces on defense with Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo. So I think they'll be much improved. And they have improved quarterback play from Malik Neighbors and the offensive targets. And Dallas just has too many questions right now. Jerry Jones has played DeRon Bland 4 years, $92 million. He hasn't been good since he got the interception record. Their corners are weak. Their pass rush is full of a bunch of rookies and guys who are inexperienced. And one of their best player from last year on defense, Demarion Overshown, is still recovering from an injury, and that will be a few weeks to recover. So it could be a very slow start for Dallas, and I don't think it's gonna be very slow that they won't be able to recover in the very end and very likely finish fourth place. So I agree with that. And then from what I'm seeing is, do you have the Giants at third, or do you shockingly have the Commanders at third?
No, I have the Giants at third. Like you stated, they're a young core. I just don't see them going this year. I don't see them going over that hump and maybe shock like they can. They have all the possibilities with that young core to make a shock and go for a second place run, maybe even a first if they get a lucky hot streak. But I just can't see where that can happen, especially when you got to play the Eagles twice in a season and the Commanders twice in a season. It's just that's four tough football games
Yeah.
and two really good teams coming off great seasons. So I just don't see them going further than third place in this division.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in note is they have the hardest schedule in the NFL this year. I don't know why they keep giving it to them. I don't know what point they're trying to prove with any of this. It's just the Giants. Obviously, they're a much improved team, but not that much of an improved team to give them the toughest schedule in the NFL. In my honest opinion, I think Russell Wilson will be solid for them. He'll be able to get them more wins than 2 or 3, whatever they had last year. I can't remember, but I think they'll be like a 6, like between 6 and 8 win team. But the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is when Jackson Dart steps onto the field and becomes that starter, because the way he looked in preseason, I know preseason doesn't mean everything, but he looked like a balanced quarterback, and they have enough on the offense. It would just be them having to upgrade the offensive line, but he looks like a day one quarterback for them, and just a guy who's ready to improve and ready to just step into that role. And I feel like if they get him in at the right time, they could have their quarterback in the future there. So
Yeah, needless to say, Giants have a lot more looking forward to this year than they did last year, and Jackson Dart is pretty set with the quarterback in front, the successful quarterback in front of him, to help learn and teach him on how to be a set quarterback in this league in the future.
So, but then moving on to second place, I'm just gonna give my prediction real quick, and then you probably agree with me on this. I think it's Washington, in my opinion. Like, I think Washington, in my opinion, they made enough improvements, but I don't think it's enough for them to prevail to first place. But do you feel any differently, or do you agree?
You know, I agree, but just that, you know, long standing, nobody's repeated in the NFC East in a while, so you never know. That trend can stay up, but it's going to be hard. It's a tough division. They all play hard teams this season. None of these teams getting easy like passes this year. So it's going to be fun to watch the NFC East and who comes out on top.
Yes, I agree. But I also find it very interesting that the Commanders were able to finish 12-5 last year, and a lot of those wins were very shaky. But I think I saw this. They had a top 5 easy schedule last year, so it was a very nice Like, don't get me wrong. I think Jaden Daniels is a generational talent. He played amazing for them. Like, he soared his expectations last year, but at the same time, he was in like he got a pretty easy schedule to start his career, and they had some stressful games, but like at the same time, he was able to prevail at the end of the day. But now coming into this season, the big question, will he have a sophomore slump? That's the question that's been asked, because obviously the big comparison we saw was CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud had a same season to him, obviously not getting to the championship, but exceeding expectations for him as well. Number 2 overall pick as well, and a draft that back-to-back quarterbacks went. So I do find it very interesting, but I do think he will still be improved. But I think it's a very good sign for them to finish second place and get a playoff spot when they re-sign Terry McLaurin. I felt very confident in them, because now he gets his number 1 guy back. And a guy I'm really excited to see is Jacory Koski-Merritt. They traded Brian Robinson to the 49ers. He's the running back 1. He looked great in preseason. They said he's looked great in training camp. And to trade a guy who's been your experienced back for the past couple years for a rookie, there's obviously trust in him. And if he's good, Jaden Daniels with his running ability, that could be a scary run-pass option offense for Cliff Kingsbury to run. So,
yes, and a sleeper on that team, he might be old, but he was one of Jaden Daniels' top targets last year, especially coming to the postseason. Zach Ertz, he was one of the best tight ends in the league a few years ago. Bounced around a couple teams, but he performed well at the end of last season. One of the reasons they made that big playoff push with Jaden Daniels. So you could always look out for a veteran to spark a young core like the Washington Commanders have.
Exactly. But obviously, moving on to number 1 in the NFC East, I'm just going to give my reasoning on why they won't win it, in my opinion. I think it's 2 reasons and 2 reasons only. The one you mentioned, the repeat champions, it's not happened for over 20-plus years now. And number 2, the injuries. If injuries happen, injuries can happen. Like, they got very lucky last year. The injury bug didn't hit them that hard. It's bound to happen this year. I think it's very inevitable that some key player could get, like, they got it early in the season, luckily, with the A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but they really didn't occur it until, like, maybe Smitty was out against the Ravens, and, like, he missed a few games. But when the injury bug hit for them, it wasn't added, like, inconvenience for them. They were able to, like, someone else stepped up in that role and were able to help them win. I do think there's a very high scenario that happens, because every team can't stay as healthy as championship teams do, and I think it's inevitable. But at the same time, if they do stay healthy, they keep the key players, they should finish first in this division, in my opinion.
Yes.
So,
No argument there. I completely agree with everything you said. And to recap and just final words on the NFC East this year, it's going to be tough. And any of those three teams except Dallas really have a shot to maybe surprise us this season, and anybody could really win. But again, Dallas.
So, moving on to the NFC North, but before we move on to that, I want to get your opinion on the current state of every quarterback in this division. I want to get your opinion on how you feel about each quarterback in this division.
First off, Caleb Williams coming off his rookie season, nothing much to build off on. Like, you're the franchise guy now. All right, step up. This is a very winnable division. Even though Packers just got that addition of Parsons, you could still step up and be that guy, because the Lions are a little shaky, as you saw toward the end of last year, and Stafford's leading them again, so he's getting older. So, not Stafford, Goff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it happens, but yeah, obviously, I'm not the biggest Caleb Williams supporter. I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. At the end of the day, the Bears got the first overall pick. I wanted them to take Jaden Daniels, or at the time, I didn't want them to trade Justin Fields because I still had faith in him. That faith is kind of derailed a little bit. I still think he can be a solid quarterback, but for a year ago, basically the draft process around that time, I still thought he could be a starting quarterback, and I thought they should have taken a wide receiver like Marvin Harrison or someone to add to this offense.
Around.
Exactly. But they took Caleb Williams, but at the same time, he is built up for success now. I'm not expecting major expectations, but I'm expecting him to improve mightily. He has now Colston Loveland added to this offense, Luther Burden both through the draft. DJ Moore is still there. Rome Odunze's, I think he's very much proud for improvement on his second season, and he got the best coach he could have got out of the entire pool in Ben Johnson. This guy is an offensive guru. He thinks of offensive plays in his sleep at this point, the way he's so creative, and he has a quarterback that has mobility and can create plays off the play action and can make plays outside the pocket. It's just, can he develop as a quarterback? That's the biggest question in my opinion. And if I'm being honest, it's a big enough question for me to have the Bears in fourth place. I don't know if you feel any different about this division, but who do you have in fourth place? Do you have the Bears too, or do you feel differently about any other team?
I could see either the Bears or Vikings ending up there, just because we don't know how J.J. McCarthy is going to perform. He got hurt last year in the preseason game, and we saw how that turned out. They were supposed to be this good team, maybe sneak into the wild card, but he got hurt, and they fell under the radar. So I feel like if they get hit by that injury bug again, and Caleb Williams is now a year into this league, he's way more experienced than McCarthy is, you might have a shot at maybe the Bears and Vikings going interchangeable at 3-4 in this division.
I totally agree, because at the end of the day, if you have quarterback issues or questions, that's what's going to derail your team as a whole. And I totally agree that both these teams have issues and why they could be interchangeable at 3 or 4, in the division. And let's just go to the Vikings. I had them at third. You probably have them at third too. I think J.J. McCarthy, if he would have played maybe if he would have had a Brock Purdy, but not obviously in the playoffs, would have had a 5 games before, previous last season, then I would have all the confidence in the world for the Vikings to finish first in this division, because their roster is loaded on the defensive side. On the offensive side, obviously Jordan Addison is suspended, but they bring back Adam Thielen into this offense. They have TJ Hawkinson. They have one of the best, if not the best receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson. They have Aaron Jones, and they added Jordan Mason. And then their defense is already good with a great defensive coordinator in Brian Flores. So I think they're much improved from last year. Obviously, Sam Darnold was great for them last year. And then another offensive guru in Kevin O'Connell is in their system, showing that he can make any quarterback look good. And obviously, J.J. McCarthy was great at Michigan playing that quarterback management role. If he can play that to a level that Brock Purdy did up until I feel last year when he lost all his weapons, because he's kind of in the same scenario that Brock Purdy's in, loaded offense, loaded defense, offensive guru offensive guru. It literally just comes down to him playing ball management football enough that he can get them points on the board because their defense is going to make stops. So,
Yes.
So, let me ask you this: What team do you? I'm not even going to say second place. What team do you like better in this division to finish first? The Packers or the Lions?
I think the Lions, just because of how more well built that team is, and Dan Campbell as a coach. Like, he has a zero fucks given energy to that team, and he will ride that until they make it to the Super Bowl. And especially coming off that loss last year against Washington, I think they're going to be a scary team again this year, and I could see them outbeating the Packers by maybe 1 or 2 games this season. It's not going to be a runaway this year for them.
Yeah. I would like to agree with you, but I do think it is the Green Bay Packers. One reason only. You mentioned Dan Campbell. He has a great mentality. He knows how to connect with his players. But he is technically in the same scenario that Nick Sirianni was in a few years ago, losing both his offense and defense. And obviously the Lions have a great offense, but they got a major hit out of nowhere this offseason with Frank Ragnow retiring. That was a huge loss for them. And he was like one of the best, if not the best center in the game. So losing him stinks. Their defense, it's going to come down to how Aiden Hutchinson comes back from his injury and is able to play. I think he'll be back to normal. I think he'll be stellar. He should be in contention for comeback player of the year, defensive player of the year. So, but I had them in the second place only because I feel like that move the Packers were able to make last week on Micah Parsons makes their defense better. And Jordan Love, he's got to break out eventually. I think this year is when I'm drinking the Jordan Love Kool-Aid this year, in my opinion. I think he's going to be great. They finally got him a receiver in Matthew Gordon. They finally drafted a first-round receiver. He's looked great in training camp. They have Christian Watson. They have Jaden Reed. They have 2 great tight ends in Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. And they have a great running back in Josh Jacobs. It's now or never for him. Matt LaFleur's got it. He's got to find the full potential in his quarterback in Jordan Love, and he's got to take it to the moon. And I think this will be the year for them. I think the Packers easily could finish first place. You had the Lions, but I think that one main reason is the one main issue I have is how can the Lions perform without Ben Johnson in the system? I know they had Aaron Glenn, who was great, but Ben Johnson made this team go with the creativity he had each week, the way he was able to utilize every single player in this offense. I want to see how his void is filled and how they're able to play without him. But that's the main reason why I have him. So. But moving on to a division that I don't think is as tough. I think we both are in agreement who we have finishing fourth place in this division, the Saints. If you want to give any explanation on that.
No, I think this division is simple and cut as it will be. Correct me if I'm wrong. I really think this division is going to go Saints, Panthers, Falcons, Buccaneers. From last to first.
I couldn't agree more. The one team I do want to talk about though is the Panthers. I do think third place is where they finish because they're still a very young roster and they're still improving. But I expect the way I mentioned,
I think Bryce Young is going to have a breakout year this year.
I think he's going to be great because I mentioned J.J. McCarthy not having a few games. Bryce Young looked great after his benching, and they only improved the offense from there. They brought in Ted McMillan. They're going to have another season of Xavier Legette. I know they traded Adam Thielen because Jalen Croker was looking great, but now he's hurt. But he has 2 legit great receivers that are going to look great for him. In my honest opinion, the Panthers, they could have the new Mike Evans of the division. He has a similar build. He was great at Arizona. He seems like a guy who could be very consistent. And their defense is improving. And Dave Canales, he made Baker Mayfield look great. He's eventually going to make Bryce Young look great. It was his first year. Their team wasn't that good. But they improved enough on the offense. and the defense, and their team is only getting younger. Like their team is young, but it's developing. That's the thing you want out of a young team like that. They're making good development as a team, and I think a third place finish is what will happen. But don't be surprised. I don't think they'll win the division, but don't be surprised if they finish second place in the division because Bryce Young has a great year.
Yes. But I think, which you can agree with me, I think the Buccaneers are just too good of a team with Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield is always a wild card. Never know how he's going to perform. So I think they are a great fit to go first in this division, and nothing's really stopping them but themselves.
Mm-hmm. And now moving on to the final division in the NFC West. Who do you have in fourth place this year in the NFC West?
Fourth place this year, I can see either maybe the Cardinals or the Seahawks. Cardinals could, like I said, any of these four teams can go interchangeable. This isn't really one of those divisions where you have a team that's cut chase, but they're all mediocre this year. I think none of them really got big additions. Cooper Kupp stayed interdivision just with the Seahawks, so they're not really facing anybody new. So
Mm-hmm.
I really think either the Cardinals or the Rams will end up going 3-4 this year.
I find that interesting. I think, obviously, I know it's tough for you to trash on the Cardinals because you're a
Yeah.
big supporter of them. But I gotta ask you this: is this a make or break it year for Kyler Murray?
I think it is. If Kyler Murray had an injury last year and came back, they won a few games. Good. Now, can he prove himself this year with a full healthy year? You have your target, Marvin Harrison. What can you do? It's now or never. James Conner can get you a touchdown in the red zone most of the time within the 5 yard line. So I think this could be a year where they either shock people, maybe sneak into a wild card spot, or you fall off. Kyler Murray goes MIA and they just go maybe a 2-1 season, and you got to really start thinking, is he our franchise quarterback?
I think it's a very interesting aspect, and I think it's something to definitely consider because Kyler Murray's been here since 2019. He hasn't really had a good season since that 8-0 year. Like he was great. He had DeAndre Hopkins. They obviously brought in Zach Ertz at the trade deadline. They had great defensive players, but ever since then, it's either been an injury or he's just not elevating his game. Here's the one thing with him. He has he's an amazing passer and a great rusher. He just doesn't he doesn't like he can be very reckless sometimes. That hurts him. But the main thing I'm frustrated with him about is they got him an amazing receiver like Marvin Harrison. Like between the past few years with Ohio State, they have a generational guy in Jeremiah Smith right now. Marvin Harrison was that good, if not better, when he was at Ohio State, and it just frustrates me that Kyler wasn't able to get him as involved as he did. But at the same time, another play was able to emerge that I'm really excited for, and Trey McBride. He's easily a top 3 tight end for me in the league right now, and I think it's only up for him from here because he was great last year. Like he took an amazing leap from where he was, and I think he'll be a great target for Murray. But he's got to get that connection with Marvin Harrison. He had such a great one when they brought in DeAndre Hopkins. Between 2020 and
I feel
2021.
like that is his equivalent this year. Like you need to have those connections, or else you're not going to make it very far in the season in general. You got to learn if you want to have a shot at the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And they obviously improved on defense. They brought in Josh Sweat. They drafted Walter Nolan. And I got to ask you this. What are your ultimate thoughts on Jonathan Gannon as a head coach? Do you see him as your coach for the next 2-3 years, or do you think he's a guy that just doesn't fit the system of this team and the culture as a whole?
I think he fits the culture. I think he embraces the Red Sea environment they have going on there in Arizona. I just feel like it's up to the players. A coach can only do so much. Your franchise quarterback can't be sitting playing Call of Duty all night. You gotta play at the end of the day, and hopefully they get more out of Kyler than they did in years past. Hopefully they can find what they had in that 8-0 start a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely something to take into consideration. At this point, it's now or never for Kyler Murray. Is he the quarterback or is he not? Because he's got to be able to stay healthy and make connections with these receivers so they can be a solid team.
Yep, and you have a lot of college quarterbacks coming in next year. You don't do well, your team goes 2-1 season, you might be looking at a free agency or a cut next year. So don't be surprised if the Cardinals start to lead away, if they start going 0-9 or 1-10 later in the year.
So ultimately, though, what are your predictions for standings for the NFC West?
Final standings, I think it will be Cardinals, Rams, Seahawks, 49ers, or Cardinals, Seahawks, Rams, 49ers.
Yeah, I think it's I agree with the Cardinals, Seahawks 4-3, but the main thing you'll see this later on. I think the Rams had the biggest addition in this division without a doubt. They brought in Davante Adams. I know he's in his 30s, but he's still an amazing route runner. He's still such a good route runner. You still need to double team him sometimes because he could burn your best cornerback. And I think that's going to be a main component because I know Stafford's been dealing with injuries, but as long as they have Matthew Stafford, you got the main four components in my opinion. You got Stafford, Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, and Davante Adams. Your defense was much improved last year with the additions of Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. They have Byron Young. They have other guys on this defense that are good enough to be the Rams defense is exactly what they need them to be. It's a middle-of-the-pack defense that can make timely stops, and their offense is a fireworks show every week. They could put up 30 to 40 points every week with the offense they're set up to have right now. And Davante Adams, he might not be as good as he used to be, but he's 10 times better than what Cooper Kupp was going to give them this season. So,
yes.
But moving on to the AFC East, what team I think the Bills are very likely to win this division. But is there any team in particular that you're really focused on in this division?
I think the Patriots, with the addition of Stephon Diggs later in the year, could make a surprise. But I don't see anybody beating the Bills. That's just a good team. They're healthy, and I think Josh Allen has something to play for this year, and trying to get over that hump and make it to the Super Bowl. So no, I think it's pretty cut. The only decision is who's going fourth and third in the division between the Jets and the Dolphins. But, it's pretty simple. I think it's Bills 1, Patriots 2, Dolphins, Jets, and a changeable at 3-4.
Exactly. I think the Jets, they obviously brought in Justin Fields. It's an interesting thing. Does he have anything left? Can he develop as a quarterback? I think it's coming towards very end. No, obviously he gets one of his receivers back in Garrett Wilson. They have Breece Hall. They brought in Aaron Glenn, a defensive-minded guy, which is not the best for a guy who's on the tip of the iceberg on if he can be a franchise quarterback or not. So, but at least at the same time, though, he's not pressured. It's not like he's been with the Jets a few years and they brought in a new regime. Not only is he coming in as a new quarterback, he's coming in with a new head coach, a whole new system. So at least they're going to give him a little leeway. But I do think the Jets are going to finish fourth place. I just think Justin Fields he's tried at this point, and they didn't give him enough opportunities in Chicago. And you obviously saw how it went with them bringing in Matt Eberflus. You don't bring in a guy who's trying to develop as a quarterback who's a defensive-minded guy. They tried it with Eberflus, it didn't work. They brought in Glenn. When the Jets' defense was already good, they fired Robert Saleh last year. Their defense was so good, but then after they fired him, they completely crumbled. You needed to bring in a guy, in my opinion, that was very offensive-minded because your defense is already good with the pieces they have. Bring in a guy that can help Justin Fields develop his game, and you'd be looking at a different scenario right now. But the way they're set up, I do think they're very much likely to fourth place. And then, obviously, you said interchanging with the Dolphins. I do agree. It could be either way with those teams. But I do want to bring up what you said about the Patriots. I really like them this year. They brought in, I think, in my opinion, I talk about Ben Johnson. Mike Vrabel's number 2 in my opinion, and head coaches they were able to bring in, especially into that system. Former Patriot, guy who's going to make these players work. He's the perfect guy for that system, and they improved in where they needed to. Their defense, they added so many pieces. On offense, they brought in Stephon Diggs, like you said. Drake May is prone to have a better season than he did last year, and he wasn't even that bad that last year. And a guy I'm very interested to watch is Travion Henderson, their second running back that they drafted out of Ohio State. Obviously, they have Ramondre Stevenson, but Travion Henderson looked explosive in the preseason and looked like he could be an actual threat not only in the rushing game but in the passing game. And for Drake May, a quarterback who's trying to develop his game, that's the perfect thing to have, a guy who can stretch the field and make big plays. So, but obviously, we talk about the Bills. I think at this point, until another team makes drastic improvements, I think the Bills are a lock at this point to finish in the AFC East. But I do want to ask you, do you have any expectations for them, or do you think it's going to be the same scenario, win the East and then eventually get knocked out by their kryptonite, the Chiefs?
I really think that it's a very possibility. The AFC is just stacked with powerhouses that will come first in their divisions, in the Chiefs, Ravens. Then you have the Texans, who might have a good year this year. Steelers are always a team that's thrown around. The Bills just gotta continue what they do in the regular season throughout the playoffs, which they have failed to do in years past.
So, but moving on to the AFC North, I think we are both in agreement that the Browns will finish 4th place. But the most important question I want to ask you, who will be the Browns starting quarterback in Week 18, the final game of the season? Who will be trotting out for them in that final game of the year?
Shador.
Shador?
Shador will be the starter. It doesn't matter how the season starts. Even if Flacco starts all this time, Shador will get to start Week 18, even if your record is 1-15. Just by the fact that he is your rookie quarterback. It's going to be him or Dillon Gabriel by that Week 18. If you're playing down that bad, one of them's going to end up getting cut. One of them's going to stay as your backup under Flacco at that point. And at this point, if you're 1-15 and all 3 of y'all ain't doing well, they're drafting a better quarterback in the next year's draft. So it's up in the air. It's the quarterback spot is available. So if you get your shot, Shador, Gabriel, or Flacco, it's go time, because you're interchangeable right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's at this point, it's going to be inevitable. Joe Flacco is going to try his best to do everything, but he's not walking into the same roster he walked into in 2023. That was a much better roster on the defense and on the offensive side of the ball. And the Browns were already 50-50 when he walked in that situation. He's walking into a brand new season with Myles Garrett as their best player on defense, and then I know they got Denzel Ward and some other guys, but that defense is not that good. And then Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku. Nick Chubb was there in 23, and he was still healthy. Now they're down to Jerome Ford, and they drafted Quinjon Junkins. He's not playing anytime soon until he can sign his contract. But I think it's very interesting. I mean, the way I look at it is Joe Flacco might make it to midseason, and then they drafted these 2 quarterbacks for a reason. You got to let them play at least a few games, see what you have in them, because like you said, if they all suck, then they're really screwed, because obviously they got 2 first-round picks for trading back, but then you want to be able to use those first-round picks to help your franchise quarterback develop as a quarterback, because if you have 2 first-round picks in the top 5, you're hopefully banking on one of these quarterbacks hitting. That's, I feel like, their scenario right now. I feel like people think, oh, these guys are their franchise quarterback. That's what the Browns actually want this scenario to turn out as. They want one of these quarterbacks to turn out as a gem. I think the whole Shador Sanders situation, we can go on and on about this, how his draft slide happened. I just think, one, it's his attitude. He's a very arrogant person, and teams didn't want to take a risk on that. And 2, who's to say that the Browns don't do something crazy fire Kevin Stefanski and bring in Deion Sanders the following year? It could very possibly happen, because Shador is very influential in the way he does things, the Sanders family as a whole. So, but moving on to the rest of the division, I had the Steelers at third place? Do you have like the Bengals instead or no?
I had the Bengals instead just because of Tomlin's record in years past. I don't see him having a losing record this year. And I do like their additions in Darius Slay. Metcalf is a big one. So I think they have that extra edge over the Bengals, who didn't really have that big off season. But you still have Burrow and Jamar Chase that can get you to that second overall in the division. But I like Pittsburgh going to this year.
The main reason I have Pittsburgh at third place is I think Aaron Rodgers is so past his prime and so, like washed at this point that he could actually have them have a losing season. Like I could very much see them finishing 7-10 or 8-9. Like at the same time though, like if he sucks, it's gonna only be worse after that because their options they have I think is Mason Rudolph and Will Howard. And I like the additions they made. But the type of additions they made at the same time is a team that's trying to go all in. This team's not good enough to go all in. Their offensive line is very bad. Their defense, it's been good for years, but their offense has never been able to support them. And, hey, maybe if they had Aaron Rodgers a few years ago, they would have been. But he's into his 40s now. Like, he did not have the best season with the Jets last year, and he's walking to in another situation with a terrible offensive line, and he's only got one receiver. I know DK Metcalf, but then they have Jalen Moore and Caleb Johnson. But then at the same time, you traded one of the best safeties in the league for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. Like, you could have got Jalen Ramsey for maybe a fourth, fifth, and you didn't need Jonnu Smith. You have 3 tight ends on your roster right now between Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and now Jonnu Smith, and you traded your best safety just to get Jonnu Smith in a sense because they wanted to get Jalen Ramsey. They probably could have got him for pennies on the dollars, but for some odd reason they wanted to bring in Jonnu Smith. Like, I don't get it in a sense, but this is the Arthur Smith offense. He loves his tight ends, and he gets his boy Jonnu Smith back. But that's how I just feel on them. But obviously, with the Ravens, like we both had them going each way, but
it's like the AFC East until one of the other 3 teams make a bigger move. Ravens are the powerhouse in that division.
And then let me ask you the same question about the Ravens. Is this their year to finally prevail, or do you think
I think it might be their year. I think Lamar stays healthy. I think they fly under the radar with all the Chiefs hype, the Bills. And I think this might be their year to finally creep up and get into the Super Bowl matchup.
But let me ask you this. What do you think has to happen for the Ravens to finally get over that hump? Does another team need to be bad, or what do they need to do as a whole to be that team that finally gets over the hump?
There's not really much. You just got to perform like the Bills. You have to perform when it comes down to that time. You can't choke in the divisional round. You can't choke in the championship round. The whole thing with the Eagles was they rode that 8-game, 9-game winning streak throughout the playoffs. You can't have a 10-game winning streak and then lose that game before the playoffs start or go to playoffs and die right away. You got to carry that high until the season's over, especially late in the season, or else your all momentum's gone.
And I think, don't get me wrong, I don't hate Lamar. I just ain't the biggest supportive of him at the end of the day because I think he can be great, but he puts himself in harm's way a lot. And he the thing with me is about the Josh Allens and Lamar Jacksons. They've had plenty of opportunities, but it's at this point the excuses are just racking up with these quarterbacks. It's the it factor, and obviously we're going to be talking about the if factor with the AFC West and Justin Herbert. But these quarterbacks, the excuses just keep piling up, and I'm tired of these critics saying, "Oh," especially now with the Ravens, what they're able to do on the defense. These quarterbacks, it's on them at this point. They are the superstars. They put up the amazing stats, but at the end of the day, are they really winners? Are they doing enough to get their team to win? No, they're not. They'll put up. Both these quarterbacks have won MVP the past couple years. how did both those seasons end? They both ended against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And at this point, the Chiefs the past couple years have not had the greatest roster. Especially with the Ravens, they had a better team walking into that AFC Championship against the Chiefs, and Lamar Jackson choked. I don't think this may or not. I forget.
I think it was Andrews.
Yeah, but at the same time, Lamar's second longest pass of the game in that AFC Championship game was to himself. Was himself. Like, he did not play great in that game. And I like you mentioned Mark Andrews, but at the same time, we also can't forget Lamar had 2 turnovers in that game, an interception on the first drive, and then a costly fumble that DeMar Hamlin covered and got the Bills points on the board because he has terrible ball management. He's holding the football with one hand trying to get outside the pocket and slips and fumbles. Like, what are you doing? Like, it seems like these quarterbacks had the opportunity to elevate and get past Mahomes. They just choke under pressure, and I don't know. That's how I just feel. So, but moving on to the AFC South. Let's start off with the first place. Who do you have winning this division?
I think Texas wins this division. I think the sophomore slump is over for Stroud. I don't know what all this Stroud hate is with, he's not going to be that good again this year. He had an off year. He was riddled by injuries around him last year. They're going to be riddled by injuries to start this year, but I don't see him having another bad year this year. So I think they are one. Yeah. Especially with the other teams. I don't see Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville doing good. Tennessee, who the hell are they? And Indianapolis. Yeah, Daniel Jones at quarterback. Not even Anthony Richardson, who gave you a great year last year as a rookie. So they have stuff to figure out in Indianapolis. But I think Texas is your clear winner for this division.
Yeah. But so I do agree with the Texans, but I like how you said what you said about the Colts. Do you have them finishing 4th place?
It's interchangeable again. Like, these 3-4 teams are probably the hardest to pick just because of how interchangeable they are in most of these divisions. But I could see them or Tennessee ending up in 4th place, mainly Indianapolis, though, just because of we've seen how Daniel Jones can play. And if they change to Anthony Richardson like they should have, hopefully beginning of the season for them, they're going to be ending up coming 3rd over the Titans.
So, I think that's very interesting, but I like how you said how they switched. So you still believe in Anthony Richardson as a quarterback?
I believe in Anthony Richardson.
Okay. So, let me ask you this then. What was your opinion on him checking out of the game because he was tired?
Draft stock. You don't want to hurt your stock. I mean, if he gets hurt, you're out. If I'm tired, okay. Don't want to get hurt for upcoming seasons. So, that's all I got to say. Daniel Jones isn't going to cut it. The only reason why he had that good season in New York is because of Barkley was healthy that year. What happened when Barkley went away?
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
No, I think it's very interesting, but at the same time, you bring up Anthony Richardson, he was in the same draft class as Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, and both quarterbacks have shown something while he's shown, obviously the highlight plays you can show, the thing that makes me so frustrated about Anthony Richardson, he can scramble out of the pocket and throw it 65 yards on the money, but can't complete a simple slant pass. He's very reckless. I know I bring that word up a lot, but he might be the definition of it. The way the way he does stuff is very questioning. He can sometimes he can look like that superstar quarterback, then other times you question how he even got why he even got drafted. So, but let me ask you this then: between 2nd and 3rd, who do you is it interchangeable, or do you have a place 2nd team that you like in the AFC South?
I think Jacksonville has 2nd, just because Trevor Lawrence ain't that good of a quarter. Like he's a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but he's not gonna lead you to the playoffs every year. But he's more. He's now in what year 2 or 3 with Doug Pearson in there, head coach.
They got a new head coach.
They did get a new head coach. I'm sorry. So you got Duval, whatever the hell they do in Jacksonville down there. Jesus, they need help more than Indianapolis does and Cleveland do with their quarterback situation. But yeah, that it's. I think Texas is another one of those first place teams. It's only you that can make yourself lose this division this year.
I couldn't agree more. But let's move on to the final division, the AFC West. This is another division. I do think it's pretty set in stone, like the top teams. But every team improved. The team I want to talk about the most, though, is the Raiders. They improved a lot. Like I still think they're going to finish fourth place, in my opinion, because they're not better than these other teams. But bringing in Geno Smith, Pete Carroll as head coach, another year of Brock Bowers, drafting Ashton Genty, and then
keeping Max Crosby.
And then you just brought back Amari Cooper. I know that Jacoby Myers requested a trade, but it's at this point, if he doesn't get traded, then they have him in the offense. And Geno Smith is going to get the more wins that they did last year. And they actually got more wins than I thought they were going to get last year with the quarterback carousel that they had. So I do think the Raiders will finish fourth place, but they'll be one of the teams we're talking at the end of the season that we're excited to see what's ahead for them. So, but let me ask you this. The biggest question I think out of any of these divisions, will the Chiefs finally be dethroned, or will they keep their crown as the AFC West champions?
They're keeping their crown as the AFC West champions. I just don't see it. They've had the same pieces as they did last year in Rice, Worthy, Kelsey. Not much change on the defensive side of the ball. Mahomes is still a top 5 quarterback, top 10 quarterback in this league. He has another 1 or 2 years left of his golden era, I guess you could say it. And I think they have the one here in AFC West. But if they go on a little slump this year, I think Justin Herbert might be. It's time to shine down there in LA. Or Bo Nix. Bo Nix surprised a lot of us last year sneaking into the playoffs. I think it's very possible for one of them to dethrone the Chiefs, but I just don't see it happening.
I think that, in my opinion, the team that could do it, the best chance, is the Broncos. Hence, I have them in second place, like maybe 2-3 games behind them at the end of the season. But I do like what you say about the Chargers and everything. Obviously, they lost Rashawn Slater, which is huge. But I mentioned Justin Herbert has been the definition of the if quarterback. If he did this, if he had that, when are we going to finally say that he needs to start performing? Because his 2 playoff games, 4 interceptions. I know some of those interceptions against the Texans weren't his fault. But then also choking a massive lead to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's 0-2 in his playoff career, and his resume is not like what is like shown in both those games is not a good sign for him as a quarterback. So I'm just saying. But I have the Chargers in third. Do you have the Broncos in third, or do you like?
I had them in second, and Chargers in third, Chiefs in 1st, Raiders in 4th.
So these are ultimately our collaborating our division standings. But now we're going to get into the second portion of this prediction and what everyone's looking forward to, the award winners and our early Super Bowl predictions and Super Bowl winners. So let's get into it. So first, we have our offense and defensive rookies of the year. Let's start off with you, Joe. You have Ashton Genty and Jahad Campbell as your offense and defensive rookies of the year. What went into this reasoning for the pick?
Johnny, he's going to get most of the carries this year for Las Vegas. So he's going to get, I think he's a clear-cut winner for offensive rookie of the year.
And then what about, okay.
And then Jahad Campbell, I went to the Eagles preseason game against the Bengals. I think he showed out. I've watched his tape in the college, and I really like how he performs. I think even with his injury, he could be really good.
Yeah, I think it's I like the Genti pick. It's been a very common pick, and I think Jahad Campbell can be a very dark horse pick for that because he could be great for the Eagles. Like with the Kobe Dean being out, like the first at least the first 5 games of the season, he could emerge himself as a great linebacker and put up great stats. But the reasoning for me for why I went Matthew Golden and Abdul Carter, obviously I said I'm drinking the Jordan Love Kool-Aid this year. I think he's going to be great, and that goes into addition with Matthew Golden. We've had Offensive Rookie of the Years be receivers before, and Matthew Golden is the clear-cut one in Green Bay, and like I said, he's looked great. I think he could be Offensive Rookie of the Year caliber. And then obviously Abdul Carter, the most dominant defensive player out of last year's draft in my opinion. And he's going to a defensive line that includes Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence. So they're going to be getting the double teams, but at the same time, they're going to have to double team. But when he's not getting double teamed, he's going to be absolutely dominant. It's going to be impossible to stop that Giants defensive line. Hence why I think he's going to be so good that he gets the Defensive Rookie of the Year. So, but then moving on to the next, we have our offense and defensive players of the year. How about you? I find both your picks very interesting. I want to hear your reasoning why you chose both.
Hurts, he could end up being an MVP candidate, but I really think he's not gonna. With Saquon, I feel like they're gonna feed him a lot of the ball, so I don't feel like he's gonna use his legs a lot this season. The tush push will obviously help him with the Offensive Player of the Year, but I just think there's better players for the MVP candidate, like Allen, Lamar. So I'm just thinking if he wants to, I think he is going to get an award, which he's well deserving of. By far, it would be the Offensive Player of the Year. Now, as far as defensive, I think CJGJ is going to get it just for the fact that he didn't want to leave Philly. He was upset that he's leaving, so now he has something to prove out there in Texas. I think he's always been a good player. I think this is, and like we said, Texas is one of those teams where you have everything to go out for this year. You're under the radar with your quarterback Stroud. I think CJ can be one of those veteran players that speaks up, speaks his mind, and leads the team to maybe a couple playoff wins. So I think that could help him get Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting. Like, it's very unorthodox anymore that you see a quarterback win the Offensive Player of the Year, but you bring up the tush push that can honestly get him over the top, but like you said, not over the top to get him MVP, which I think is very interesting. But the reasoning why I went with who I went, I'm going to start off with my defense first because I also went with the Texan. Just looking at Derek Stingley the past couple years, we had a corner win it last year in Pat Surtain, but Derek Stingley's coming off to back-to-backs, like 2 straight seasons with 5 interceptions. And like, I know it's interceptions with a corner just come at a premium at this point, but I think he could have another great season and then also be a lockdown corner. Like, obviously you mentioned CJ Gardner-Johnson. He's going to be back there. They have Danielle Hunter and they have Will Anderson. They're going to be getting the pass rush, but then when the quarterbacks are going to be able to actually release the ball, Derek Stingley is going to be there to lock them down. So, and then my reasoning on Puka Nacua, I obviously mentioned it in the NFC West. Devontae Adams is going to have a major impact, and I think it's going to also impact Puka Nacua 10 times. Like, it's going to impact the Rams offense, but it's going to impact Puka Nacua 10 times more than that because he's going to have a lot more opportunities. He's going to have an opportunity to have a 1,400, maybe even a 1,500-yard season. And I just think, obviously, we had the Saquon season last year, hence Jamar Chase probably would have won the Offensive Player of the Year with the Triple Crown. It's very likely Puka Nacua could do the exact same thing this year and get the Offensive Player of the Year. So, and then moving on to our comeback players of the year, both of ours are highly favorites. Let's get into your first, Joe. Why did you choose CMC?
I chose CMC for obvious reasons. You lose Debo back there for San Fran. I think CMC has the gateway to open up a lot more opportunities for San Fran. He can be the guy they run to. I think he has a breakout year to prove why he was a former Madden cover, to prove why he was a former fantasy first overall pick. And I think that injury last year really hurt him and hurt the team in general. So I think could be a clear cut winner for a comeback player.
I agree because now looking at the Niners offense, that like obviously I kind of just scratched last season, so he basically missed last year. It's a drastic difference on the Niners offense he's walking into. He's walking into an offense that used to have Brandon Ayuk, who was healthy and good, Deebo Samuel, who was healthy and good, obviously George Kittle, Brock Purdy, who looked like good, and their offensive line was great. But now he's walking into an offense with Ricky Pearsall, Ayuk's on the IR, Kittle's still there, and Brock Purdy has a lot to prove after getting paid a lot of money this offseason. So I do think it's very likely that he has a bounce back year, especially one that can get him comeback of the player of the year votes. And at the end of the day, they're looking for players that come off bad injuries and really show why they're still some of the best players in the league. Hence why I went with Aiden Hutchinson. He had a horrific injury last year with the Detroit Lions. It showed it impact, and it started a spiral downward spiral with the rest of the team, how their injuries went. But now he's coming back. He was so dominant. Like, he was going to easily lead the league in sacks last year the way he was playing. And I think he's not going to be that crazy again this year, but he's going to have a good enough season to get him the comeback player of the year and be that threat that he was when why the Lions drafted him a few years ago. And I still think coming off an injury, he'll be great and he'll show that impact that he made early in last year and what he'll be able to do this season. So, and then moving on to our coach of the years, you have Dan Campbell. Why'd you choose him?
I was thinking Nick Sirianni. I'm not gonna lie to you, Zach, but like I was saying in our predictions, which really got me thinking. I really think his energy could be the reason why the Lions might make it to the Super Bowl this year. I think if they do make it to the Super Bowl, he's a clear-cut winner for Coach of the Year, just because of his energy and the overall vibes and communication he has with his players. He makes the game more enjoyable to watch for the fans with his trick plays, with his, oh, let's go for it all. I don't care how the situation ends up. I have faith in my players, and I have faith in my players to back up whatever I call.
Yeah, I agree. I know I said like that, and the way you just explained everything definitely is a compelling reason why he can win Coach of the Year, and I think it's very likely. And I think at the end of the day, if the Lions, if what you said happens for the Lions, then he should be Coach of the Year, because then it should, if Nick Sirianni was able to have the season he had last year in 2023 after losing both coordinators, he easily would have won Coach of the Year. And if Dan Campbell can do that, get them the 1 or 2 seed and still look like the threat they were last year, then he should be Coach of the Year, because it's not all the time that these teams have powerhouses. It's about, I went with the player development pick and Mike Vrabel, but I want to just get back, quick reason why I chose Mike Vrabel. The development, I think he'll be great, and I think he'll get this Patriots team much improved. But I just went with the popular pick. Now that you talk about Dan Campbell, I think it's very interesting, and he is a very dark horse option because it's not always about being a powerhouse. The Lions are a great team, but we saw with the Eagles, they brought back most of their players from the championship team, or from the Super Bowl team against the Chiefs in 22, and they just had a downward spiral. But if Dan Campbell can keep this team together and have this team the 1 or 2 seed at the end of the year, he should be the Coach of the Year, because then it shows how good of a coach he is and how he's able to adjust to any situation. So, moving on to the most important award in most people's eyes, our MVPs.
Now, Zach, I'm not going to lie to you. I want you to go first on this one as your MVP candidate, because this is a real dark horse. Nobody had him in conversations. He was more of a wild card player. So I would love to hear explanation on why you chose Baker Mayfield as your MVP.
I'd be happy to. The reason I chose Baker Mayfield is I'm already said about Jordan Love. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid with Jordan Love. Dude, I'm drunk with the Kool-Aid with Baker Mayfield, bro. I think he's going to have an amazing season. I think he's going to be great. They have Mike Evans. They have Emeka Ibuka. They have Kate Naughton. He was great last year. I think he's going to even be better this year. The Bucs could finish top 2 in the NFC. They could get the 1 seed, in my opinion. I know that's crazy. I know I sound delusional right now, But I think it's very likely Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback, and he proved that ever since he's got to Tampa Bay. And he has still the most consistent receiver in the game in Mike Evans. He has Emeka Egbuka, and if Chris Godwin can come back and look 50% of what he used to, then you have 3 great receivers in addition to the most shocking running back of last year in Bucky Irving, who's only going to get better. Rashad White is his backup. Cade Otton. And then your defense is still going to be good with Antoine Winfield. You bring in Hassan Reddick. You have Vita Vea. You have Levante David still there. You have guys still there on the defense that are they're going to be another middle of the pack tier. But I think Baker Mayfield is going to have a good enough season to get himself the MVP and have the Buccaneers in Super Bowl contention at the end of the year. So that's my reasoning on why I chose him, because I think he was good last year. He's going to be even better this year, and hence why I think he'll win the MVP.
Yeah, my MVP choice is pretty basic, pretty stick to the paper, stick to who is most likely to get it, with up there with Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. I think it's going to be Lamar Jackson. I feel like this is the year for them to finally make it to the Super Bowl, and I think his speed, I think he's coming in with a different energy, especially after that disappointing loss last year in the playoffs. I really think this could be his year to win MVP.
Yeah, and no disrespect to you, I'm the type of person. Fuck the basic picks, bro. I like to go all out with my predictions. I like to go guns blazing. Why I went with him. I think Lamar's a great pick, but I went guns blazing with mine. I went to the moon. And so if Baker Mayfield wins, I can't wait to come back in this video and say that I was right. I hope so.
Yeah, I'll go to the moon too, but, I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be a dark horse for the MVP pick here, Zach. I'm going to keep it plain and simple with Lamar Jackson.
Okay. Well, you thought that was crazy. Let's jump into the final segment. You go, and then I'm gonna end off this episode with a bang.
All right. I think Birds repeat this year. I think they take the Ravens to the Super Bowl, and I think Eagles come out on top. I just think they'll be the more experienced team there. They've been in there. This will be their 3rd time in 4 years, and I think this could be the team that does it again. This is the main thing, with no injuries. Injuries is a big thing here for the Eagles. If they get hurt, then I don't think they're going to make it. But they're a healthy team. They're a dangerous team. Same thing with the Ravens. Like I was saying with his MVP case, Lamar. If he has the season that I think he's going to have, I think they're a very high possibility for Super Bowl.
I think it's very likely, and I've seen this be the common pick for the Super Bowl, so I agree that it's very likely, but it's not my Super Bowl pick. And the reason
if I see the Buccaneers and the Tennessee Titans, Zach, I will be very disappointed.
So the reason I don't have mine down is because I thought of mine about an hour before we recorded. It's not the Buccaneers, but it is a team that I said I was already drinking the Kool-Aid about. My NFC champions are Green Bay. I think they will make it to the Super Bowl. And then my AFC championship is I got the Denver Broncos. I have Denver and Green Bay in my Super Bowl. And I got, it's a tough one. Either way, whoever I pick, I'm going to get flamed in the comments for. But you know what? At the end of the day, I know it's early, but let's look back to 2021. When the Rams, at the trade deadline, they were looking good. But what type of player did they bring in to get them over the top? They brought themselves in a pass rusher. And what did the Packers do last week? They brought themselves in a pass rusher. So I'm continuing to I got Baker Mayfield and Jordan Love are my guys this year. Take them to the moon, bro. Flame me forever you want. My Super Bowl champions are the Green Bay Packers over the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 60.
Wow. Now that is a reach. It's not that big of a reach though. They're both playoff teams from last year, in the past few years. So it's not that bad of a reach. So I was really expecting a lot worse from the fact that you said you'll be surprised by my Super Bowl prediction. So this was a lot better than what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. So But this is going to wrap up our predictions. But, Joe, do you want to tell the viewers what to look forward to in the next couple days and the weeks ahead?
What we can look forward to, me and Zach have been looking forward and setting up a schedule. We are going to do, I think we decided on doing a Eagles pregame before the Dallas Thursday night game this week. A post game coming to you either after the game or Friday at some point. And then we're going to take a break for a couple of days, Saturday, Sunday. Enjoy the weekend. Monday or Tuesday, we'll get back to you with a weekend recap of the Philadelphia Phillies and how they've been doing and the tear they've been on recently, and how playoffs look with how many of their what's their magic number going to be to clinch the playoffs, their NL East berth, and maybe a first round bye. And as baseball slowly transitions out, football transitions in, Flyers hockey and Sixers basketball will be soon approaching us.
Yes.
So you can look forward to that in the next coming days, weeks, and month.
I'm just going to end it off like this. Keep watching because it's only going to get better here. You thought it was crazy in here? The takes are only get hotter, and I hope the comments get even crazier. Appreciate you guys watching this video. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll talk to you guys later.